So what areas of politics did you focus on? Was it New Zealand politics?
Yeah, I love the New Zealand. Yeah, Ramesh Thakur was probably one of the people that I kind of focused around. So foreign policy, New Zealand foreign policy, and also New Zealand politics. I did my dissertation on the a period of history in the student movement in New Zealand, which was interesting, and obviously I was interested in that. And so, yeah. But I mean, the nature of the course is that you get to do a lot, and I loved it. Didn't have the kind of specific IR focus that you've got now with the masters and that, but it was still a good program.
So, do you ever wonder, what could have been if you could have been a political scientist?
Oh, that's right.
I know.
I could have been you, Bryce.
That's right. I know the pay is a fraction of what you guys are now, but nonetheless.
So much about that.
Do you ever think, instead of being in the heat of it all and criticised by everyone and having to kiss the babies and whatever, I could be analysing and shouting from the sidelines like someone like me?
I would so love to be a political commentator, but no, I'm much more interested in doing it than talking about it at the moment. I mean, both my brothers are academics, and so I kind of see what they're doing, and every now and then, I think there are things. To be honest, if I went back to academia, I'd actually do something a bit different, I think. Yeah. There's some stuff around New Zealand literature and some figures in art and literature in New Zealand that I would, in a long, distant future, I'd love to write about sometime.
So the distant future, you could be changing career, you're not a professional...
Distant future.
You're not okay, I know you're not about to resign from Parliament, but...
oh yeah, I mean, God, you've got to, I'm not going to be there until they wheel me out in a box. So,
okay.
It'll be, there are things that I think about. I mean, one of my passions is around New Zealand literature and New Zealand art, and I think there's some unwritten stories, particularly about Dunedin-based people, actually. So, yeah.
Okay.
Question on Twitter sphere about, because obviously your student union involvement, you know quite a lot about it, about the VSM bill, and
yes.
Do you feel responsible for student associations not having enough time to prepare for VSM because of the filibuster?
Oh, it's all your fault.
It's apparently my fault. I think probably if you're looking for someone to blame, you'd probably go to the ACT Party in that regard. Yeah, we did fight the bill, but I went and spoke at the NZUSA conference in February and said, you've got to be preparing for this to pass. And most associations were. There was a bit of a conflict down here between the university and the association about how to do it, but no, I don't feel responsible for that. I think if anyone wants to look into that, they really do need to have a look at Heather Roy and the ACT Party.
Do you think OUSA will be able to survive?
Yeah, I do. I think it'll survive, but it won't be an organisation where students have control of student affairs. When Michael Laws tried this in the 1990s, we had posters that said, do you really want the Vice-Chancellor to choose the music for orientation? And that's basically what we're doing. What's happening now, it's handed over to the university with the caveat that under the Education Amendment Bill that went through the House a wee while back, what the student services levy that the university charges can be spent on is now constrained by government criteria. So it's a double whammy, actually. Students lose control of student affairs, and the range of services that the levy can pay for are constricted.
Okay, back to the arts and heritage. That's one of your portfolios then. So what have you been doing in that area? What
I'm only the associate spokesperson. Steve Chadwick's our main spokesperson. I mainly, to be honest, have been pursuing things in Wellington in that regard. Wellington's the creative capital, and we've got a lot of great arts organisations. Some of the funding is starting to drift northward to Auckland as the super city gets itself going. So that's something I've been working with the arts organisations in Wellington on. And we've got an arts policy coming out in a couple of weeks, which has got some new ideas in it, which is good.
Okay, I look forward to that. People want to know, did you burn couches?
Did I burn couches? I have never burned a couch.
Okay. And
hang on a minute.
Hang on.
No, that was Andrew Geddis.
Okay.
No, he didn't.
But he did leave a seagull in your bed.
He did leave a seagull in the bed, and this has been a subject of some... He reckons he left the dead seagull outside my door, but I remember coming home and it was sitting up on the pillow. It was disgusting.
Yes. Okay.
Why did you leave a seagull in your bed?
We flattered together. He was playing a practical joke. Anyone who knows Andrew would know that practical jokes are a big part of his
He didn't kill the seagull.
No, he didn't. The seagull was... Yeah, no.
Yeah. It's not like a horse's head in your
seagull,
bed.
Yeah. A seagull probably was harmed, but not by Andrew. Okay.
Okay. So where did you live? And
all over the show. So I grew up in Dunedin, so I wasn't in a hostel, but I lived in Castle Street. Good
wow.
God.
So you are the archetypal Castle Street sort of...
Not so much.
Things have changed a bit.
Yeah, they have. Yeah. No, it was pretty bad. That was 1990. That was... No, 91, so it was the year after the after the big riot. And then I lived all around North Dunedin and finished up in High Street before I left town. And then up to Wellington for a while, and then, like you said, off to New York.
So High Street is when you become a bit more avant-garde,
Well, don't you think
more
that, but I think that there must be, someone could do a research project on this, which is that the movement away from the university as you go further in your degree.
Yeah.
So, and by the time you're in your honours year or your fourth year or whatever, you want to be as far away from campus as you can, and that was basically where I'd got to.
Okay, so what do you think about all this controversy about student drinking? And I mean, there is a problem to some extent, but how much of a problem is it? And the couch burning, etc.
I think it's always been so, and I think the attention comes on a bit more. I have to say that in the sort of 90s period, I'm not blaming the university for this, but the university's marketing around, come to Dunedin and
have a right,
get over it kind of campaign really emphasised the social side of the university.
Yeah.
And I know that there was reasons for doing that, but I think for some people maybe they have come to Dunedin in more recent times expecting something different. But to be honest, I don't see it as that much different from what it was when you and I were there. I mean, we did occasionally occasionally have a drink, Bryce.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
Even underage, perhaps.
Possibly, yes.
So what about that? The purchase age? What's your view?
Oh, look, I think it should stay at 18.
Yeah.
I think it's the least important of the issues to be dealt with around alcohol.
Okay, what?
The most important ones are around effectively the commercialisation issues. So that's price, the role of the supermarkets in using the absence of things like minimum pricing to actually lost lead on alcohol. It's about sponsorship.
But look, there's some students here that are relatively, well, not rich, and they enjoy those cheap deals. Do you want to take them away?
Yes,
these deals?
Basically. I mean, I do
think back to the Grant Robertson of 1990.
Oh no, I do. But I think I am also the Labor Party's health spokesperson, and I do actually think that you have to look at alcohol and the abuse of alcohol as a health issue. It's a massive health issue for New Zealand, both in terms of the individual health of New Zealanders and the cost to the country. So I'm no wowser, as you know, Bryce, but I do think that if we look at the best evidence about how we can limit this stuff, price is a really important part of that. And I don't see that the supermarkets, which is basically where this takes place, using it as a loss leader is a good thing.
Okay, but
no, I don't think it will not put alcohol out of reach.
I know, but in Wellington Central it might not be a problem. But for some other Labor Party voters, poorer voters throughout the country, hasn't got the potential to sort of lose you votes, like in the black budget of 1958 or whatever? That you're cutting off.
I think New Zealanders get the impact of alcohol in their communities, and the strongest moves around alcohol and limiting the sales have come out of South Auckland. When Len Brown was the mayor in Manukau and so on, that's where it was pushed. So I actually think those communities want to see action taken on alcohol. A small price increase is a little bit to pay, but on the other side of the ledger, the cost of injuries, alcohol abuse is huge. So it's a balance, of course it is. And as I say, we're not talking about putting it out of reach of people, it's just a little bit more. But also I think the sponsorship stuff needs to be looked at over time as well. That's a huge issue, because every rugby club in this country is sponsored by a brewery. And so therefore, just like we did when smoking was taken out, the government is going to have to look at how it can step in. Smoke-free brand was created to take over tobacco sponsorship. This is a long-term issue. It's not going to happen in a hurry.
Okay, what about drugs?
What about them?
Yeah, I'm not asking.
I'm doing John Banks.
No,
I don't like drugs.
Okay. Okay, what's the question?
About what your opinions are on decriminalisation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my personal point of view is we need to relook at the laws. I think we should look at them from a health perspective. I don't have a really strong view about decriminalisation. I guess if I had to take a position right now today, I think the approach they took on in South Australia, which was the kind of partial decriminalisation approach, which was basically that possession of small amounts wasn't a crime. The criminality in drugs is around supply, in my view, and that's the bit that you want to get to. But to be honest, it's not the most important issue to me personally, decriminalisation. It really isn't.
But there are a lot of people that it is.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of students, in fact, and that's why I asked this question, because they want to know why the hell can't we smoke
and as I say,
marijuana?
I think we need to relook at it. The Law Commission's actually done really good work on this, and I think we need to take that forward and relook at the law. But we do need the health perspective there. I'll just give you one little story on this. I was visiting a health clinic in Wellington on Monday, and one of the doctors there said to me, I get it. I get the debate. I was a student myself, the usual line that people say, but she said, I've dealt with too many patients who've ended up with some form of psychosis that can be related back to cannabis use. As the health spokesperson, I want to say, all right, well, let's look at that evidence, let's look at what else is out there, and let's reform the law on that basis. But, you know, I get the fact that people want the freedom to do it, but like a lot of things in life, we've got to balance it against all the other impacts.
So I hear what you're saying about the law and the regulation, but I guess, would you advise people not to use marijuana?
You know, I mean, there's no secret. I've said it publicly numerous times. I used it. I didn't particularly enjoy it, and I don't actually recommend it, to be honest. But that's me. That was my experience, and I don't recommend it.
Okay.
Do you want some Twitter sphere questions?
Yes.
Particularly, I mean, this is particularly relevant for you with being an electorate in Wellington Central, is like the rise of the Greens, and somebody on the Twitter sphere was wondering what threat this poses to the Labour Party in this election.
I mean, in Wellington Central, it's the Greens' strongest electorate, and has been for some time. And, you know, I work well with the Greens in Parliament. I enjoy working with them. I think there's some good people in there. Labor's still a significantly bigger party than the Greens, and I think that'll continue to be the case.
But they are nipping at your heels.
Oh, yeah, they definitely are.
Yeah.
Oh, nipping at the heels. They themselves are growing their brand. They have a solid brand under MMP. They're the one minor party in MMP that's been able to solidify themselves. So, yeah, but I don't, you know, I'm quite relaxed about it in terms of the person on the Twitter sphere. I think long term under MMP, a Labor Green government is the kind of government that I want to be part of. So that's good.
Okay. Do you think we're ever likely to see a National Green coalition in any form?
Well, I think we have to accept that the Greens won't rule that out.
Yeah.
And when people are voting in this election, I do think it's important that if you want to change the government, definitively that's a vote for Labor.
Yeah.
The Greens, and they have to own this decision. Yeah. They won't rule it out, and that's up to them. But they have to own
that's really interesting. So, do you think they're being a bit sort of wanting things both ways? That they're not really willing to
I think
be clear.
I mean, you need to, and you will have. You need to ask them what's in their heads. But what it looks like from me on the outside is that they've been trying to rebrand themselves as a party that can work across the spectrum. We saw Catherine Delahunty's comments, I think here, wasn't it? That that there are some people in the Green Party that obviously greatly concerns that they're going there. That's up to them. All I'm saying is that they haven't ruled it out, and they have to own that decision. That they leave it.
Do they own it?
Well, I don't. Well, what I'm saying is they should.
I'm getting the sense you think they don't own it.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is you're hearing from some of the members that it's difficult for them.
Yeah.
The easy option to deal with that is to say, well, look, you know, we're a party that wants to work with various other parties, but we look at the National Party, we look at their economic philosophy, where they're going, and we just can't do that. But that's up to them. I'm not in the Green Party. All I'm saying is that the public, when they're making calls about who to vote for at this election, need to remember that.
Sue Bradford implied, like,